Welcome everybody to another week of the Virtual Excel Academy. I'm Leanne Grelot.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Here we are, we're with you too. I am Cheryl Kamea Hannon and I am your host for the Virtual Excel Academy today. I am joined by Leanne Grelot from APH. Hi, Leanne.
Hello.
And also Charlotte Cushman from Perkins and Texas School for the Blind. Hello, Charlotte.
Hi, everyone.
My daughter, Amaya, is here with us today. And we have a very special guest. I'm very proud to introduce our first Abacus lesson today with John Rose.
Hi, everybody.
And for those of you who are joining us from home, if you have a Cranmer Abacus, please go and dig one out of your drawer, find one. I had to rummage through a few boxes to find mine. I haven't used it in a while. So this is going to be fun. It will be like taking out an old friend. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Cranmer Abacus, this is an APH product. And I'm sure Leanne will be able to share a link for us at one point to be able to find one of those. But we also, if you don't have one of those, rest assured, we have some ideas for you at home, which we will share a little later. So John, I'll let you take it away from here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much and welcome. This is the first time I've done anything like this before, though I have been working with some students around the state of Texas on the Zoom platform. I work in the short-term programs department at Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I teach short-term programs there. Many of the short-term programs that I teach are math and technology related, but we also do other expanded core curriculum skills classes. We also do distance learning, individualized instruction, and summer programs. So obviously this year's a little bit different now. And we have the opportunity to do even more online learning. And so I'm happy to be here for the Virtual Excel Academy. And thanks to APH, thanks to Paths to Literacy. So today we're going to be learning multiplication on the abacus. And as Cheryl mentioned, to participate, the most important thing you'll need is a Cranmer abacus. However, you can make an abacus at home, and we talked about this just a few minutes ago, and Cheryl made an abacus that I'll ask her to show, and then I made an abacus too from this board. This is the whiteboard that I'm going to be using. And so I don't know if you can see Cheryl's. Cheryl has a pencil with
Cheryl, you'll need to speak.
I have a pencil here and I have strung 3 pipe cleaners of different colors, which I think are going to be helpful for place value when we talk about the ones, the tens, and the hundreds column. And my daughter actually made this. She took large beads to set at the separation bar and smaller beads, 1 large bead above the separation bar, 4 smaller beads on each pipe cleaner below the separation bar. And so this is just sort of a makeshift thing if you don't have an abacus at home. John has another example to share with you.
Yeah, and mine is just on the back of the whiteboard I'm going to be using. I just wrapped a string around the top portion of it to make the separation bar, and then use some electrical tape that I had in the garage to make my place value columns. And I have some chickpeas here from the kitchen that I use for my ones and my 5 bead. Of my 5 beads up at the top, above the separation bar in each place value column. Now, this is just a makeshift. I would want to keep going for different place values And, you know, for multiplication, you'll need, we're going to be looking at multiple place value columns. So you'll need about 9 place value columns for multiplication, but that's, you know, that's doable. You can make things like this around the house. So we just wanted to show that it's possible to make your own abacus. You don't need to have one.
John, before we go any further, can we ask and find out who out there has an abacus with them at home?
Let's do that.
Would you please write in the chat box if you have an abacus at home and if you use one at school?
And if you're also able to tell us some of the skills you use the abacus for. Do you use it for counting, adding, subtraction, multiplication? Some of you might use it for decimals or fractions. We would love to know what experience you've had with the abacus as well.
Okay.
So we're seeing some people have them, some people don't.
Wow.
Some people use it at school. Some people have used them for addition and subtraction.
Sarah, Brandy, oh my gosh, so many.
We have some teachers who are using them. Somebody who's put a magnet on the back of it and put it on the fridge. So that's a fun idea.
Hey, that's a smart idea.
Some people have one at home and one at school. Somebody's doing decimals and division and multiplication. Somebody's starting multiplication. So this is great, John. That lets you know a little bit.
Okay, great. Well, you know, I see that one of the people who responded said they're helping a second grade student with it, but haven't moved on to this type of abacus, and that's okay. This is the prerequisite skills that you'll be working with your younger students on, second grade students, third grade students, and even maybe fourth grade students, and kindergarten, first grade, all the way up. Those prerequisite skills are going to go hand in hand with the skills that come later. So hopefully when we talk about multiplication, when I talk about the abacus, that this will make sense. I worked this school year with Deborah Sewell. I'm sorry, not this school year, last school year. It came out this school year on this book, The Counting Method for the Cranmer Abacus. And we just finished, and it's available on the TSBVI curriculum web store. And I'm going to be using this book and basically going through the abacus lessons for the most part. The multiplication lessons. But the book includes prerequisite skills, the parts of the abacus, and vocabulary. And then there's a whole section on developing prerequisite skills using base 10 manipulatives. And so for students who are younger, especially the kindergarten, first and second grade students, you can use an APH workplay tray with the available inserts, and then any type of base 10 blocks to explore place value. And I'll just kind of show you all this as we start. So this is the section, the chapter on place value using the manipulatives, and you can see the workplay tray there that's divided into tens and ones and hundreds, tens and ones, and then you kind of go through and do setting and reading numbers, and do it using the workplay tray for addition and subtraction, and even some multiplication concepts as well. So with younger students, you can use the workplay tray to set up the the tray into 3 columns, and you can put digits in each column, and then multiply, count the total. So you count the number of blocks that are in each column. While I'm talking about that, I'm just going to jump right in. In addition to kind of these prerequisite skills using manipulatives, students, you want to have the basic concepts down. I have included in the handouts that you can get. I think, Charlotte, is it online?
Yeah, it's online, and it's also going to be sent out with the survey when Leanne sends that out. John, there were a couple of people who wanted to get the title of that again. They missed it. So if you could just repeat that, would be great.
It's the counting method for the Cranmer Abacus. And
the link is right in the chat, and it's available through Texas School for the Blind on their website.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I'm not bragging when I say it's awesome. The reason that I did this was because Deborah had done this book through multiplication, and then I like to see y'all. And then when I was using it, I used it for 3 years, and it wasn't being published because, well, for a variety of reasons, mostly because there's so much to do in general in our field. And so I just volunteered to help her finish it, and we did. So it's awesome because it was awesome to begin with, and I was using it as a resource, as a TBI to begin with, and I just wanted to make sure that it was available for everybody else out there. And so so it'll kind of guide you through your elementary students using manipulatives all the way up through fractions and decimals on the abacus. And so I recommend that. There are also some links to Deborah Sewell. Yes, Leanne?
Let's wait for the rest of the teacher questions until the end, and let's get working with our students.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sounds good. So students, I see that some of y'all have an abacus, and I'm going to move on to that. You should have either be studying or have studied multiplication in your mathematics class. How many of you know some of your multiplication facts? That's a question I have for you. Yeah, Corey does. All of them, Lily? Okay. Lillian? I see some hands raised. Janaya, Susan? Amaya, 2s, 5s, and 10s. All right. Sadie does. Great. All right. So that's going to be really important for working relatively quickly. It's not a requirement for today because I'll be, oh yeah, Gayatri. Okay, great. All the way to 12s. Yeah, so it's not a requirement for today because I'll be guiding y'all through this. We'll be working together. But you know, another thing you should know is that multiplication is simply repeated addition. And I'm sure if you know your facts, you probably know that. But let's just talk about that real quick. So, for example, 4 times 3 equals what? Who can tell me? 4 times 3.
A bunch of people knew that it was 12.
I see a lot of 12s. Okay, so your peers, when your peers get some worksheets, they're going to get a worksheet that has these maybe some boxes on it with some circles inside of it. And those boxes are going to have circles, and they're going to have, there's maybe going to be 3 boxes there, and there's going to be 4 circles. There are going to be 4 circles in each box. And so then your peers who can see that, maybe you get a tactile version of this. Maybe it gets sent to your teacher, and your teacher has it brailled, and there's these boxes on there with these 4 dots in each box, and you can count those dots up, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this one, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the second one, and then 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 total in all. So 4 times 1, 2, 3 equals 12. So that's great. You can also do this on the abacus. So if you just have an abacus handy, which you should, I like to, you can just go to your ones column over here, and you know, we can just say, let's just kind of forget about our place value for now. Don't tell your teacher, okay, we're just gonna forget about place value for a second. And we're gonna just go to our, what would typically be our ones column, and we're gonna set 1, 2, 3, 4 in that ones column. And then I'm gonna move over to the column next to it, which is usually our tens column, but we're not worrying about that right now. And I'm gonna set 1, 2, 3, 4 in my tens column. And I'm gonna move over to my hundreds column, and I'm gonna set 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's not hundreds, it's not hundreds. So typically when we read this, we would say 444, but that's not what this is, okay? This is 3 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4. There's a group of 4 on each one of these, in each one of these columns. And now to get my total, I can just count back down away from the separation bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 3 times 4 is 12. I can do the same thing if I have, well, I don't know. Does somebody want to give me a 1-digit number? Anybody? I'll take the first 1-digit number, 7. Okay, 7 and 3. Okay, my first 2 1-digit numbers. So I'm going to have 7 groups of 3. So you guys can work along with me here. I'm going to set 1, 2, 3 in my first column, 1, 2, 3 in the second column, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's 5. So now I have 7 groups of 3 set. So all the way up to my millions column, but we're not worrying about that. To Karen, yes, I am gonna set it up. I'm just working on some groups right now. Okay. So in this case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So transitioning from what your peers are likely seeing on their worksheets for 3 groups of 4, or in this case, it would have been 7 groups of 3, you can, okay, Kaya, got it. You can also do the same thing on the abacus, okay? All right, so we're moving on. This works as a good strategy for teaching and learning concepts and practicing the facts up through a certain number. So what's the highest number I can set in one column? The highest number I can set in one column. 9. I see a 9. That's right. I can only set 9 in one column. So I can only do multiplication that way, that easy way, up through groups of 9s. But I need to do more than that. We need to start talking about multiplication using certain methods. All right, and let me, I gotta move on to my next little, okay. All right, so we're going to talk about setting the problem, setting the multiplication problem. And so in this case now we are going to think about place value. And in each column or in each period, and just to review, on your separation bar, you have 3 different place values in each period. So let's start in our units or hundreds period. I have ones, tens, and hundreds. And then in my thousands period, I also have 1,000s, 10,000s, and 100,000s. In my millions period, I have 1 million, 10 million, and 100 million. And in my billions period, I have 1 billion, 10 billion, and 100 billion. Okay? So when we're working with multiplication problems, we're going to be focusing on ones, tens, and hundreds in each of these sections, So when we set our problems, we're going to be thinking about place value in that way. So there are 3 numbers in a multiplication problem. There's a multiplicand, that's the number to be multiplied. There's the multiplier, that's the number that's doing the multiplying. And there's the product, or the answer. So when we're working the multiplication problem, I like to start the process with the smallest number as the multiplier. Oh, I'm sorry, back that up. We'll get to that. All right, so let's just look at a multiplication problem here. So I'm gonna write this out first. So I have 22 times 2. 22 times 2. And number 22 is our multiplicand. The number 2 is the multiplier. And what we don't know, which some of you probably do know, we can use mental math on this, is the product. Now, which number in the multiplicands is in the ones place? The 2, that's right, Gayatri. And is there any other number in this problem that's also in the ones place? The 2, that's right. The multiplier is also in the ones place. And there's also a 2 in our tens place. So we're going to set this up on the abacus. And, you know, let me just, for any parents or teachers there, so a typical student with vision will work this out. 22 times 2. We'll multiply the ones place first. 2 times 2 equals 4. So I have 4 in my ones place in the answer. 2 times 2, 20 times 2 equals 40. So I have a 4 in my tens place in the product. On the abacus, this works the very same way. And I think it's really important to parallel the abacus with what peers are doing in the classroom. So we're going to set our 22 in the billions column, and we're going to set a 2 in the tens place of the billions column and a 2 in the ones place of the billions column. And that's 22 in the billions column. And I'm going to move over to my millions section. And then I'm going to set a 2 in the ones column of my millions section. So my
And
problem
I'm going to interrupt because I think people would like you to describe how you got there, please.
how I got
Yeah.
where.
To how you knew which column you were in.
Oh, okay. All right. So in our on our separation bar, which is the middle bar between the fives beads up at the top and the ones beads at the bottom, the separation bar has some dots and some vertical dashes. So each dot represents the column. And so each dot represents a place value column. So you have ones over here on the far right, tens, hundreds, and this makes the units section. And then in our next section, our thousands section, I have ones, tens, and hundreds. 1,000, 10,000, 100,000s in the thousands section. To the left of that is our millions section. Each section is marked by these kind of vertical lines or dashes. And I have 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. And then to the left of that is our billions section. And the billions section also has ones, tens, and hundreds. 1 billion, 10 billion, and 100 billion. We're using these sections as locations in order to put these values. And so we're deciding to put them in the billion section for the multiplicand and the millions section for the multiplier. And we're just using these sections as places to hold these numbers while we're doing our multiplication. Is that helpful? Yes? Okay.
I think it's helpful, and people are also wondering if you could just mention which method you're using.
Well, I'm using the counting, I use the counting method. Once you get into multiplication though, and Crystal, I'll get to your question. Once you get into multiplication, your method for isn't really that important. Counting method is really just a method that that allows you to count the values up rather than using mental math to set the values. So really, once you get past addition and subtraction, your mental math is going to be good enough to either use or not use the counting method as you see fit at that point. So yes, I do use the counting method, but and I will be demonstrating using the counting method today. The question from Crystal, does it have to be that section? It does in a sense, okay? In this case, it does because once I get a product that has more than 3 digits and I need to go up into the thousands, then I'll be using that thousands section to set my product. However, if I want to, I can use 2 abacuses or abaci, depending on whether or not you're a good guy or a bad guy. I just made that up. You could set your values on a different, or your problem on a different abacus if you want more space to work. I could put it in a millions section. I could say 22 times 2 on this other abacus where I have the 2 set in the units section, and I have the 22 set in the millions section. So there's some, you can have some variation. I think the important thing is to focus on place value. So focusing on place value is the most important thing, and I want to show you why. So I have a 2 in my 22 is in the ones column, and the 2 in the multiplier is also in the ones column. I'm going to focus on this 2 in the 22. It's in the ones column. I'm multiplying that ones column by 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. I got a lot of those answers earlier, so I know that it's 4. And I'm going to set a 4 in the ones column of the, just in the ones column, where I'm setting the product. So this is in the units section in the ones column. And now I'm finished with the 2 in 22. I've done that multiplication, so I'm going to clear that. So I know that I'm finished with it. And now I'm left with the 2 in the tens column, or 20. All right. And so I say 20 times 2 equals 40. But if I'm not comfortable with doing that 2-digit multiplication, 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication in my head, I know that the 2 in my multiplicands is in the tens column. So I just set the 4, 2 times 2 equals 4 in the tens column. And that's in the true tens column on the abacus. And so I can clear the 2 in the of the multiplicand. I can clear the 2 of the multiplier, and I have my answer set as 44. So questions now about this problem so far? I sometimes have a tendency to get going and move quickly. And so I want to take some time for any questions, and I really appreciate y'all's questions so far. So many of you already knew the answer to that.
Can we pause a minute, John? Uriah has his hand up. Uriah, do you want to write in the chat box for us?
Whoops.
Madeline has her hand up too. Shall we call on people, Leanne?
We can give it a try, but we're going to make it really fast. Madeline, you're at the top. I have unmuted your microphone. You could hit the space bar to talk.
So Madeline, you'll need to unmute your microphone.
Oh.
There you go.
We can
Ask
hear
your
you.
question.
My comment was, I was going to say I have like an old abacus that I don't use anymore, and if I want to learn, and if I want to know a multiplication problem or check a multiplication problem, I use the lady that starts with the letter A. I wasn't going to say her name because I have a Amazon Echo sitting right next to me and I don't want her to listen.
I think we know who you mean, Alexa.
Yes, yes, good thing you spelled it because I have an Echo Dot sitting next to me and I just didn't want it.
Okay, well, thank you, Madeline. We're going to go on to Uriah now.
Okay, Uriah, go for it.
Do you think how do you keep track when you multiply?
Okay, good question, Uriah. Thanks. So, John, how do you keep track when you multiply?
Okay, those are both great. Good questions and comments. So I also notice another question in the chat, and I'm going to try to address all of these. I think that checking your answer using any type of device or tool is totally great. And you know, knowing what the answer is, and then going back and trying to figure out what you might have done wrong is a great technique for learning and practicing math in general. And a lot of teachers will give answers to some problems so that you are able to do that. So then the other question was, or one of the other questions is, how do you keep track of your of what you're multiplying? And that's a great question. So I want to just kind of demonstrate a few things about this. So one thing that I like to do, and I'm going to scoot over a little bit. So can y'all still hear me okay?
So far, so good.
Okay, great. So one thing that I like to do is when I'm using my abacus, and what I did was I moved over so that I could get right in front of my abacus. And I want to make sure that my body is relatively close to the table, and that my hands are resting right on the table. So I have my hands resting on the table, my fingers resting on the abacus, where I can feel the separation bar. So I can just rub my fingers back and forth lightly, and I can feel the separation bar. And I know where things are on the separation bar. And then I take my my two index fingers, and I put them together so that when I put them down, I can feel two columns, two different columns. My two index fingers, so if I move all the way to the right of the abacus, I know there's a little space over there to the right where there's nothing but some plastic. But the first column I come to, I have one finger, my right index finger, that's on the ones column. And I have my left index finger that's on the tens column. And I keep these fingers relatively close together so that I can tell where I am on the abacus. And then as I move over, I can feel the period marker after I move over. So I move my fingers over one space, and now my right index finger is on the tens column, and my left index finger is on the hundreds column. And then as I move over again, I feel that period marker. And so I can use my hands and my index fingers to determine where I am on the separation bar. Now, once I have determined where my periods or sections are, then that's how I'm going to keep track. So I'm going to move over in that first section is the unit section, ones, tens, and hundreds. As I move over to the left, there's my thousands section, and I can feel those period markers as I move over. And then my next section over is my millions section, and I feel with my index fingers these period markers. And I'm going to move over to the left one more time, and there's the billions section there. And so that's where I'm going to set my multiplicands, in the billions section. And the first little dot there, first column, is the ones column. And so that's where I'm going to set, in this case, a 5. I'm going to set a 5 there. So I'm going to move over one more column, to the tens, and I can just go ahead and set that with my left index finger because my fingers are set here on the ones and the tens in the billions section. And I'm going to set a 3 here. 1, 2, 3, or I can set 3. I don't need to count them. And then I'll move over one more. And so now my right index finger is on the tens, in the tens column of the billions section. My left index finger is on the hundreds column of the billions section. And here I'm going to set a 1. And so now what number do I have set in the billions section? I have a 5 in the ones, 5 in the ones column, 135. Thanks, Anita. Yeah, 135 set in the billions column. So that is going to be my multiplicand. Now, I need to go over to the millions section to set the multiplier. So I can feel the period marker separating the billions from the millions section with my right index finger. And so I'm going to move over until I feel the period marker for the millions section with my right index finger. And so just to the left of that is the ones in the millions section. So I'm going to set a 3 in that ones column. So I've set a 3 in the ones column of the millions section, and I have 135 set in the billions column. So my multiplication problem here is 135 times 3. So there was another question about the rule for setting the problem. I have a hard time calling these rules because I've learned so many rules about the abacus. This is the way that I teach students to do it because it's the way that that I've learned that makes the most sense to me. And I feel like there are a lot of different ways for doing it. And so if there are ways that are easier or better for others, then that's great. But this is the way that I said it. So it's not a rule, but it works for this. So I've got 135 in the billions, 3 in the millions, 135 times 3. So I'm going to take my index fingers and I'm going to find the ones column of each of these numbers. So I've got 3 and I'm tapping this with my index finger. So I keep track of where I am. I can feel the 3 beads and I run my finger up the 3 beads and there's my separation bar and I can feel that dot that indicates that one's place value in the millions section. And then I'm over here in the billions section with my left index finger. So I move away from my right index finger with my left index finger, and I feel that period marker. And just to the left of that period marker is the little dot that indicates the ones section, the ones column of the billions section. And I don't feel any ones in there. I don't feel any ones, but above this period marker, I feel that 5. And so I'm going to multiply those two. I'm going to multiply the 3 times 5, and I'm going to get what? 3 times 5, 15. That's right. Good. Yeah, Susan, Anita, Tana, and Gayatri. Awesome. 15. So I'm going to come over all the way over to the far right side. And I know how to set 15, right? So I'm just going to set a 1 in the tens column and a 5 in the ones column. There's my 15 sets. Okay, Gayatri's got it. You got it, man. Awesome. And so my 3 times 5, I've multiplied 3 times 5, and I'm going to go ahead and clear the 5 in 135. So my 5 is clear. I'm finished with that part of the multiplication problem. Okay, Jonavi. Okay, great. Excellent. And so I'm going to move over to the left in the billions section. I'm going to keep my right index finger on that 3 of the multiplier. And I'm going to move my left index finger over to the 3 in the multiplicand. And that's, I'm going to call it a 3, but it's a 3 in the tens column, and that equals 30. So we're multiplying 30 times 3. And we know 3 times 3 equals what? Yeah, 3 times 3 equals 9. Add a 0 to the end of that. That's 90. 9 in the tens column. I'm going to come all the way over here, and I'm going to add 9 in the tens column. So I'm going to use the counting method here just to demonstrate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I can't set any more in the tens column. So I need to set 1 in the hundreds column and clear the 9 in the tens column. And so, so far I have 105. And I can move all the way back over to my problem here. And I'll put my right index finger on the 3 in the multiplier, clear the 3 in the multiplicands because I'm finished with that. And I'm left with 1 in the hundreds column. So 1 times 3, or 100 times 3, equals what? Yeah, 3 or 300. 3 in the hundreds column. I'm going to go on over to my product over here on the right. I'm going to set 3, 1, 2, 3 in the hundreds column. I'm going to come back over and clear my multiplier and my multiplicand, and I'm left with 405. And that is, we can check with that lady whose name begins with an A, and she'll tell us that the answer to 135 times 3 equals 405. All right, so that's a 1-digit multiplier. How much time do we have left? 10 minutes? 12 minutes? Do we have questions? Or do y'all want to see a 2-digit multiplier? Yes. Yes, you want to see a 2-digit multiplier? Yes. All right. Love the enthusiasm. Excellent. Yes. Yes, Denise. Yes, I would be happy to talk with you. If anybody wants to email me about different ways for that problems have been set up in past methods and things like that, I'm happy to talk about that in a separate context. My book is on the
I'll put it in the chat box, John.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, thanks for the enthusiasm, everybody. I really appreciate y'all. It's so nice to be able to teach. So here we go. Does anybody want to give me a 2-digit number? $56 and $47. Okay, those are big ones. All right, I'm gonna have to take the first two. I got 56 and 47. All right. Great, Leanne, I would be happy to join that. Okay, so 56 and 47, right? Okay, 56 and 47. So where am I gonna set my 56? Which section? The billion section, that's right. Okay, 56 in the billion section. And where am I going to set my multiplier? The 47. Millions, right. So 47 in my millions section. All right, so I'm looking at the ones, and I have 7 times 6. What's 7 times 6? 42, that's right. That was always hard for me when I was growing up. I was like, man, 7 times 6, 42. So I'm going to set 42 over here in my product, 42. But I'm not finished yet. I'm going to keep working. I need to keep multiplying this 6. So 6, I'm going to go over to my 4 in my multiplier of 47. So it's 40. 40 times 6. 4 times 6 equals? 4 times 6 equals 240. Or yeah, 24 in the tens column. Yeah, 240. So I'm going to need to add 240 to this. So, so let's go ahead and add the 40. So I can say 1, 2, 3, 4. So that leaves me with 80. And then I add 2 to the hundreds column, and that's 200. So I have 282 so far. Now I'm finished with my 6. I can clear it. Finished with my 6 and I can clear it. So now I'm left with a 5 in the tens column in my billion section. And so 5 times 7 equals 35, but it's in the tens column, so we're gonna add a 0 to the end of that, and it's 350. That's right. So we're in the tens column. We set 35 here in our tens column. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my 3. 1, 2, 3. So I've done my 7 times 5. I'm finished with my 7 of 47 fame. And now I'm left with a 40 and a 50. What's 4 times 5? Or 40 times 50? Four times 5 is 20. But we're going to add 2 zeros. 20 with 2 zeros. 2,000. That's right. So I'm going to set a 2 in the thousands, and I'm going to come over here. I'm going to set my 2 in the thousands column. Now, anybody want to ask Alexa if that's correct? $2,632 is the answer y'all gave me. Yeah, that's what I'm getting too. All right. So my last question for y'all is, have I helped at all?
John, you've done a great job. I think people have loved it. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I think we told teachers we'd open it up at the end if anybody, any of the teachers want to ask questions in the time that's left.
Yes, please. Hi, Jill.
We're glad to see a lot of you have been helped by this session, and we'll put in a plug for, I guess it's the 23rd of April we have, which is next Thursday, a week from Thursday, we have another Abacus session. So it's going to be more of an intro. If this was a little over your head, come back to that one. But let's see if there are any questions for John while we have him here today.
So one person said, I have learned a lot and I have a better idea of when I think my second grade student will be using the abacus.
This is excellent. Thank you all so much. This is really, would I start with basic abacus and kinder and pre? It depends on the students. I would definitely start with manipulatives, one-to-one correspondence, and you know, groupings, same, different, and basic addition and subtraction using manipulatives.
How long have you been using an abacus?
How long have I been using an abacus? I started using an abacus almost 11 years ago.
And is this method different from the direct method?
Yes, but not at this point, not significantly, because students will learn that either the counting method or direct or synthesis method early on. And so you can still use those methods for setting. There are, the method that this differs from is the method where you count over to set your answer. This differs in the sense that you focus solely on place value and setting according to place value rather than learning the procedure for where to set the product, if that makes sense. Yes. Yeah, what Liam says. So yeah.
So he says, I have been using a method involving counting digits and adding one place for where to set the multiplier right next to the product. This method makes more sense, and I think I'll practice this method of separating the multiplier instead.
Thank you for saying that, Liam. I would love for you to talk with, oh, yes, okay. This is overwhelming. Liam, I would love to have this this chat recorded so I can give some of this feedback to some other people.
We are keeping track of it, John. What we need to do, though, is say goodbye to people. And then if you're willing to stay on for a little bit, John, we'll say goodbye to Belinda, who's our captioner, but maybe we can take a couple more questions or at least give your email address.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so we'll let Cheryl tell us what's coming next.
Thank you everyone for joining us. It's so wonderful to have a math lesson. So once again, this was John Rose from Texas School for the Blind. And for those of you who may have missed the materials, there is a book that has come out from TSBVI that John was instrumental in helping Deborah Sewell also write. And so Charlotte will put that in the chat window just in case you missed it. And for those of you who are looking for an abacus, that is an APH product. And Leanne, maybe you can also share with our participants a link for the APH abacus as well. Thank you again, John, for that really interesting method for multiplication.
Yeah, you're welcome. I also wanted to say that I meant to say that in the materials that I shared, there is a link to the TSBVI website, and if you scroll down there, there should be now posted a link to our short-term program office hours, and so we're doing that. Each teacher is doing one. Mine are on Thursdays at 10, and so there should be a Zoom link to that, so people are welcome to come and chat with me there.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. Just a few announcements. For those of you who were using your abacus at home, we're in need of some photographs, and we would love to see you sitting with your abacus, maybe at your desk, and how you use it. You don't need, if you're shy, you don't need to have your face. We would love to just see your fingers on the abacus, but we would love to see your face too. So if you could send those pictures to Leanne at outreach@aph.org, we would love to see those photographs. And this is for our slideshow presentation. If you notice at the beginning of every day, we have a different photograph. We would love for one of you to be in those photographs. A couple other announcements. TSBVI has another wonderful resource. They've been doing coffee hour for TVIs. So for those of you, if you are a TVI and you want to join the coffee hours, I will post that in the chat window. Also, APH has been doing some really wonderful at-home webinars, and that's another wonderful resource for our time at home. I'll put that in the chat window. And last but not least, we have a full agenda for the Virtual Excel Academy. Tomorrow, we will have Kate Cadillac, Staying at Home, Processing Our Feelings During Uncertain Times. This is part 3 of a 4-part series. So if you were not able to see the first 2 parts, please do go back to Paths to Literacy and check those 2 first sessions out. They are archived for you to watch. And do check the Paths to Literacy for the rest of the schedule. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for joining us. And John will stick around for just a little longer to answer some questions. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you
everyone.
all.
And John, I'm putting your